let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
What's up, everyone? It's so funny because anytime you do calls like this, you say, "What's up, everyone?" and no one answers at all. Not that I'm expecting anybody
What's
to,
up,
but
Elijah?
what's what's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
Good, and yourself?
Good, man. Good. Hopefully, I don't lose power. It's like raining pretty hard here, so I'm hoping that the storm doesn't knock out the power. But hope everyone's doing well. Obviously, Aaron, we've been doing this series where we've had some of the top producers in the company talking about the different things that they how would I say this, that they specialize in, what their cup of tea is, their bread and butter. For me, for those of you who know me, you know that my area of, I don't know, I wouldn't even say expertise at this point. I'm still learning myself, but my area that I find myself most drawn to most of the time is the area of IUL. So I'm going to talk about IULs, Index Universal Life, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of the nuances in regards to this product, because I think that a lot of times when you're approaching clients with this product, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's not your average product that you can just, from day one, just start off writing business. I mean, obviously, it's not super difficult to write the application, but it's a little bit more difficult to show an illustration. It's a little bit more difficult to kind of get the feel for what the client is after in terms of what they want out of that product, right? There's a variety of different ways to structure it, and there's a variety of different reasons why people are attracted to this particular product. So, for example, sometimes people just want a permanent death benefit, in the same way that they would want a whole life policy, but they want something that's accumulating cash value as a, how would you say it, as basically an extra bonus, but at the same time that's not like the main reason why they want this product. Other times, because of more recently, as of late, as I'm sure you guys probably know, the buzz around IULs, whether it be infinite banking, the Rockefeller method, become your own bank, these are all terms and all catchphrases and buzzwords that are associated with this product. And so there's different reasons why people are taking an interest in this product. And so it's a good idea to kind of have a good familiarity with just all the functionality of how a product like this works, and what in particular the client that you're dealing with in the moment is mostly after. Because this is what happens. Early on when I first started writing this product, people would get on the phone. You talk to someone who says, "Oh, I want an IUL," and I'd say, "All right, perfect. So, John, tell me a little bit about your situation. What is it that kind of stuck out to you in particular?" And they'll mostly say things like, uh, "Well, how much does it cost?" It's like, "Well, how much does what cost?" Right? I mean, there's a variety of different ways to structure this. And for those of you who do know a little bit about this, with IULs, you can kind of make it cost as much or as little as you want it to, depending on what your goals are. So, for example, for those of you who are new to this industry, in Index Universal Life, if they're just wanting death benefit with like a good amount of death benefit with the minimum amount of cash accumulation in order to make sure that that policy continues um, to to last the test of time, then there's a certain premium that's called your target premium. Then there's other people out there that overfund the policy as well, right? And so overfunding it would be any amount of money that they drop into the policy in excess of the target premium or the minimum premium in order to accumulate a substantial amount more of that cash value for the purpose of becoming their own bank. Maybe it's retirement in the future. Maybe it's just to leave a massive amount of legacy money and a massive death benefit to their loved ones, their kids, their family estate, their trust, whatever it might be. So again, all that being said, I don't mean to be redundant, but I wanted to just kind of like touch on the different ways and the different reasons why people are attracted to this product. And so I'm going to get into the specifics. But before I do that, I was going to first talk about how, the most important thing when you're talking to people about this product is, not just talking to them, but when you're first approaching them, when you're talking to someone on the phone, when you're dialing a lead, is I think that just like any lead, this one in particular, I've heard people say this, and I think that this is actually pretty true. Like most of the time, insurance is an emotional sale backed by logic. With an index universal life, it tends to be the opposite. It's more of a logical sale backed by emotion. And what we mean by that when we say that is what we're basically getting at is the fact that because the index universal life does give you that layer of protection in the form of life insurance, but then it also gives you, we can't call it an investment product because it's actually technically not an investment product. And that's basically according to the Internal Revenue Code, the tax laws. It's not considered an investment product. And I actually bring this up when I talk to clients. I tell them, listen, this is actually not considered an investment product, and you actually don't want it to be. Reason being is if it was an investment product, it would fall underneath all the same rules and guidelines as any traditional investment product, whether that be a 401k, an IRA, anything else like that. So the tax advantage reasons why people use this is because it is a life insurance product and not an investment product. So again, so what you want to do is you just want to make sure that you approach these when you're first calling these people. You want to first make sure that when you get them on the phone, you kind of get to the core of what they're after, right? So for example, the step number one would be honestly just dialing the lead. As far as if you're dialing on index universal life leads, you're talking about a very specific type of lead, the ILC social media IUL leads. These people have, without question, probably seen the buzz in regards to index universal life, and they're wanting to get more information. They're wanting to figure out what is this thing. Some people know more than others. It's pretty evident based on the conversations you're going to have. Some people start throwing out words like sometimes they'll talk to someone and they'll immediately say, yeah, I want it where it's minimum death benefit, max cash accumulation. And when they say things like that, you know that they've been doing their research and looking into it a little bit. But the main thing I'm getting at is when you're first dialing these people, obviously you're going to get a variety of different people, a variety of different, how would you say it? You're going to get a bunch of different people that are in various stages of how much they know about the product, right? So, but regardless of what that is, you still what I think people miss when they're dialing leads, when they're calling people about the index universal life, is they're just treating it very transactionally, and they're booking their appointments in a way that like almost presuming of the fact that this person wants this index universal life and they're going to meet with you no matter what. Even if if you book an appointment and you're just assuming they're going to meet with you. And obviously at the end of the day, in a perfect world, that's the way it would work. But what I do is I try to, when I'm calling people and have conversations with people, I try to, as much as I can, in a very non-threatening, casual way, whet their appetite a little bit. That way, whenever the meeting comes up, whether it's the next day or 2 days from now, they kind of are a little bit more in anticipation. They're anticipating getting more information, and they're a little bit more excited about getting more information on what this product can do. So for example, I'll just run through the script. So what I usually do is real simple. I'm gonna cover a couple different things. I'm gonna go through how I talk to people when I call them with my call script, and then how I book the appointment, obviously. And then what I'm going to do is I'm basically just kind of go through a basic, appointment, how I run an appointment with somebody. I won't get too much into the financial analysis simply because I think we talk so much about that. Mark does a great job of that. Obviously, it's a good idea to get into the financial analysis because it gives you a good amount of leverage in terms of how much money they're working with, and being able to see everything, all their cards on the table, so to speak, so you can see what they're dealing with and what they have available. in terms of, what their ultimate financial goal is with the product. But I'm not going to get into too much because it just takes a lot of time. So I'm just going to go through my call script real quick, and then I'm going to show you guys what I would do if I was actually running an appointment with somebody. Because, honestly, I would say this: I've gotten to the point now where I'm comfortable enough, pretty proficient at it, to where I can just do one call closes, right? And so that's where you want to get to. You want to get to the point where you're proficient enough in how to navigate this product and how to navigate the illustration, so that if you get someone on the line and they say, this isn't always the case, but someone might say, honestly, I'm ready to talk right now. I got a good 30, 45 minutes. You could just real casually say, all right, cool. Well, let's just look at it real quick. So but first of all, let me just go through my call script just so you know what it looks like when you're booking an appointment, because this is really important. I think a lot of people think that when you're booking appointments, like I said, they think that, they treat it in a very transactional way. Hey, John, how's it going? Good, pretty good. I'm just calling about that index universal life. Awesome. Okay. And then they book the appointment and they just expect them to show up. But I do different things in order to elicit and invoke a little bit of that emotion and an anticipation of what they're going to see, so that by the time they sit down with me, they're like kind of chomping at the bit to see what this thing actually does. So what I would do is I just ring, I call them. Hey, John. Or let's say they say, oh yeah, let's say, hello, John. Hey, what's going on, John? This is Elijah. Hey, hey, what's going on, Elijah? Where do I know you from? Yeah, John, I'm actually just calling because it looks like, when was this? This was probably about 2, 3 days ago now. You had filled out this form. It's actually in regards to that index universal life, that whole infinite banking thing. Does that ring a bell to you? You remember doing that? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember doing that. Okay, perfect, perfect. So tell me a little bit about that, John. Obviously I know you were putting in a request to get more information, but what was it that kind of stuck out to you? What were you looking to get more information about? Well, I mean, honestly, I just kind of wanted to get more information about how it all works. Or they might say something like that, or they might say something like, oh, I just wanted to, figure out how it all works and how much it costs. And I'm like, okay, cool. So again, this is where you as the agent, it can be a little tough, because if you're a new agent, it's like it can be like, well, how much does it cost, right? Because this is one of these products that technically it's a flexible premium. You can make the premium as much or as little, right? So what I try to do is when they say things like that, I try to give them a little bit of context in order to give them an expectation as to what to look for, right? So I'll say something along the lines of, I saw Aaron's comment. I'll say something along the lines of, okay, perfect. Well, this is what I'll tell you, John. With these products, first of all, we don't know if something like this would even help you. But I'll just tell you a little bit about it and just kind of give you a nutshell version of what this type of product does. And then what we can do is I can even arrange like a time in the next day or two where we can sit down and I can show you an illustration. And what that would do is, usually what I find is with an illustration, it shows you, it would be able to show you the trajectory of how your cash value would grow over time. And in the context of that, I can touch on all those different things that people use this for, such as the infinite banking principle, a retirement product, just to grow a massive death benefit for, to attach to a family trust. There's a variety of different reasons and things that people use this for. And I don't know what you're going to be particularly using it for, but I can go through all of that just so you have a well-rounded view as to all the different ways you could use it. Do you feel like if I did something like that, do you feel like that could help? Oh, yeah, that would definitely help. Okay, perfect. So real quick, this is what I'll tell you, John. So let me see. Let me look to see. So if I did show you that illustration, you feel like that could help? Yeah, 100%. Okay, perfect. So when are you typically more free? Like mornings, evenings, afternoons? I'd say like mornings, probably mornings. Okay, perfect. Well, I do have some availability tomorrow morning at like 10 a.m. Would that work for you? Yeah, I think that would work perfect. Okay, perfect, perfect. I'm going to put you on there, John. And what I'm going to do is once I put you on there, once I put you on my calendar, you're going to get like little text reminders leading up to that point. I don't know how it is for you. I'm pretty busy if I don't have something like that. I'll usually forget. I just got so much going on. But if you could just do me a favor, just text me back and tell me and just confirm that you received that, just so I know it came through. Does that sound good? Yeah, that sounds perfect. Okay, perfect. And like I said, once tomorrow, it won't take too long. But like I said, the most important thing about this, like I said, I don't know if something like this is going to help you. But like I said, it'll take about 10-15 minutes. We'll go through that illustration. And if it's something that you feel like would help you, we could obviously talk about possible next steps. But it doesn't even make sense to get there until you kind of get a little bit more clarity on all the nuances and moving parts of something like this. So does that make sense, John? Sounds perfect. Okay, perfect. All right, John. Well, I got you on my calendar. Like I said, you'll see those texts leading up to that. In the meantime, if you have any questions, this is my personal cell. Feel free to reach out. But otherwise, we'll talk tomorrow. Sounds good, sir. All right, bye-bye. So here's the thing. What I do is, everybody has a different style in regards to how they approach clients. What I try to do is I'm always trying to diffuse and get people to lower their guard in regards to that sales resistance. So I don't know if you guys caught it, but like I'll say certain things like, I don't know if we don't even know if something like this would help you. But if it does, if you feel like it could, we could obviously talk about possible next steps. But it doesn't even make sense to get there until you get a little more clarity on how all this thing works. And so the reason why I say that is because, contrary to like your everyday life insurance product, I already know that if this person has thinks entrepreneurially and thinks in a way in regards to thinks in a way about money, like they're looking for new ways to grow their money and use and leverage something like this for, to you know what I mean, make their money work for them, then they're already going to get excited once I show them the illustration. So, I'm basically just wanting them to just feel at ease and feel relaxed because once they see the numbers, they're going to get pretty excited. 9 times out of 10, they do. And if they don't, then they're the type of person that doesn't want it anyways, right? It's just not going to happen. I can't convince somebody to want something that's just not, I can't make people be excited about something that they're not excited about, right? So that's how I would approach that. Like I said, I'm always using phrases like that in order to lower that sales resistance because I want them to feel at ease so that they can make a decision based on, not feeling anxious and feeling like, all right, cool, this guy's chill. This guy's not like, super pushy or anything like that. It really does make a difference. And when I do, when I do tell them about the illustration that I'm going to generate for them, basically what I'm getting at is like I said, I'm wanting them to get a little bit of a nutshell as to all the different ways they could use this. And that's why I'll touch on like that infinite banking and how to grow a massive death benefit for a family trust. But at the same time, I don't want to give them too much information because I don't want them I don't want them to think they know what it is without actually knowing what it is, right? So that's a key thing. You have to kind of whet their appetite and be chill, but don't give away too much information until you're ready to show them the illustration, because that's really going to be the difference between whether or not they find value in the product or if they don't. So with that being said, I'm just going to go right into this. And the one I write most of the time, as you guys already know, what we always try to do with every insurance product is, if at all possible, we always try to go non-medical. And for those of you who are new in the business, non-medical, what that simply means is there's no blood work, there's no medical exam, there's nothing like that. It's a very simple underwriting process. It just means that, they just ask you there's very specific parameters in terms of what they're going to ask you, different questions and stuff like that. But, as long as they can get pre-approved, or if it looks like they get approved for it, it's very simple. With Mutual of Omaha, what's great about Mutual of Omaha, I would say probably like, if you do good field underwriting and you get a pretty good feeling as to whether or not this person could qualify for it, it probably gets instant approval probably about 65% of the time. Not quite, not all the time, but a good amount of the time. And that's always good to see because then you can in the moment say, hey, you're approved, and they're usually pretty excited about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this illustration software. With Mutual of Omaha, they use this software called WinFlex. And for those of you who have, done this, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. but I want to just show you what I do in the moment so that you kind of get an idea of like how to navigate this on the fly. Honestly, for a lot of agents, when you first start doing this, it's incredibly overwhelming. I mean, I was like, when I first started as an agent, I was nervous just to fill out an application without Josh within arm's length. I was like freaking out. I mean, the first couple apps I wrote, my hands were shaking. But now this is so second nature to me. I can literally just pull this up. And even if I don't even have anything logged in, I can usually pull it up relatively quickly, navigate through it, just kind of like get a feel for what the client's trying to do, and then show them a variety of different scenarios to see if whether or not this is going to be a good fit for them. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to pull this illustration software. And once I do, I'll share my screen, and then I'll just kind of go through like as if I am what do you call it? As if I'm running an appointment. So let me see here. Perfect. And then Josh, you on?
I am. What's up, man?
I was gonna see if you could be my little guinea pig as far as a client. You mind doing that? It's a little harder to do to think of what they're gonna say and what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, perfect. That's awesome. Don't be too hard on me, bro.
They don't call me TLG lead lab rep for nothing, so I'll be the
100%, bro. 100%. All right, perfect. So I got this all set up. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pretend like we're on an appointment and we just started the Zoom. So, hey, what's going on, Josh?
Oh, not a whole lot, man. How you doing?
Good, man. How's your day been so far?
It's been pretty good. Busy day at work, but it's nice to be off.
Awesome, man. Awesome. It's always nice to put a name to the face. It's kind of crazy that we can do this in this day and age where we can talk to pretty much anybody across the world. But tell me about a little bit about your situation. What is it that I know we talked a little bit when we were on the phone when I talked to you the other day, and you kind of mentioned, from what I remember, you kind of mentioned you like the idea that the Index Universal Life accumulated some cash value and also gave you a permanent death benefit. But tell me a little bit more about that. What was it that kind of stuck out to you in particular, you think?
Yeah, I liked it was talking about something about where you could save the cash value and be able to utilize it without having to pay taxes. I really don't like taxes, so that was a big thing. And then obviously having that death benefit for the family, down the road.
Sure, sure, sure. Okay. So what would you say? Because this is what I'll tell you, John, like depending on, well, I don't even know why I keep calling you John. I'll just call you your real name. This is what I'll tell you, Josh. On a product like this, it's all about how you structure the policy depending on what your ultimate goal is. So it sounds like to me like you like the idea that it can accumulate some cash value, but it's not like it might not be like the main thing you're looking for, but you like it as like as a feature. Does that sound about right? Or
Yeah, for sure.
okay, perfect. So what we can do is let me see here. So first things first, in order to first see kind of what I was telling you about on the phone the other day, like really the best way to know if something like this is going to help you or not is going to be if I show you an illustration, and in the context of me showing you that illustration, like I'll be able to kind of touch on all the different ways people use this, like that infinite banking, a retirement stream, growing into a massive death benefit down the road that you can, attach to a family trust or an estate or something like that. But in order to first kind of see what different products you would qualify for, so I can show you that illustration, I would just have to ask you a couple questions. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect. And then just for the sake of time, I'm not going to actually ask the questions because you guys know the questions on this. So let's just say, for example, I went through all the questions, everything's clean. I will say this as just a little side note, just be as thorough as you possibly can. Actually, there might be a couple things I could add to this because this actually does make a difference. I used to be, in terms of field underwriting, I would ask good questions, but I think there's different things you can ask people to make it a little bit more palatable to where they're not as, defensive and kind of sketched out about it. So John, I'll just go through it real quickly, not the full thing, but I just want to kind of exemplify a couple of those different things. So Josh, what's your date of birth, brother?
11/14/1988.
Okay. And then are you on any medications?
Just Viagra.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So
Lighten up, guys.
Exactly, exactly. All right, perfect, perfect. So any other past use medications you can think of that you might have been on in the past? This is what I'll tell you. They don't really care too much about like, I mean, if you had a major surgery and you were on pain medications like a while back for an extended amount of time, then, it's good to know about. But if it's just, a couple weeks, it's not that big of a deal. Or even things like antibiotics, those are things that pretty much everybody's been on, but what they're looking for is like any past use blood pressure medications, maybe anything in regards to, anxiety or depression. Can you think of anything along those lines at all?
I had like pneumonia, but it was just temporary. They gave me like an inhaler that was like 3 years ago, but it was just like I think I only got it filled like one time.
Okay. And so it was just one time then, huh?
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay, cool. So that's good. All right. And then any like do you use tobacco at all?
No, I
Okay.
used to, but it's been over 5 years since I smoked.
That's perfect. Okay, good. And then what do you call it? Any like DUIs, right? The reason why I'm asking you these questions, Josh, is because, at the end of the day, this is what I'll tell you. I'm actually on your side. I'm team you. I'm actually even though I do work alongside a lot of these major carriers, I'm actually more on your side than the carrier side. So my job isn't to go run and tattletale all the different things to the insurance carrier, but my job is actually to get you approved. And so whether or not you tell me about this stuff, they're going to know anyways. They're going to be able to see it. So this just kind of gives me the ability to kind of get ahead of it. That way, if something is on there, I can put some notes, and it works in my favor and works in our favor in terms of getting you an approval if we should get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, what were you asking again? What was the
I was
question?
just asking like any DUIs, reckless driving, what do you call it? What do you felonies, misdemeanors, or anything like that for any
I had
reason?
like a speeding ticket a couple years ago, but it was just, it wasn't a big deal or anything.
Yeah, it's not a big deal at all. Okay, perfect. And then what's your height and weight, brother?
Like 5'10", about 175,
Okay, cool.
mostly muscle.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So real quick, what I'm gonna do here is I'm just looking around here, and as I'm saying this, guys, like I'm just kind of giving you like a peek behind the curtain. I'll say things like I'm just looking around here to see what different products are going to be the best for you. But I already know in my mind that I'm going Mutual of Omaha as long as everything's clean. If the two main carriers that I use with Index Universal Life is going to be Mutual of Omaha and Fidelity and Guarantee. So every now and then I'll do something like I actually haven't written the America one yet, simply because it doesn't give you the ability to do an increasing death benefit. I think they're working on that. That's what one of the sales reps told me. And then every now and then I'll do like an income advantage, but I actually I recommend that the two best ones that to stick with are going to be mostly Mutual of Omaha if you're trying to go non-med. If you absolutely have to go fully underwritten, I would just always go F and G. So I'll just kind of run through a couple of illustrations with both those carriers so you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. So that's just a little side note. So yeah, Josh, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, basically what I'm doing is I'm looking around to see what different carriers would be best for you. And let's see here. So this is what I'll tell you with these products. It's basically going to boil down to a couple different things. So, what I always tell people with these policies, you can actually put in as much or as little as you want into something like this. But the amount that you put into it, obviously, I'm sure this makes sense to you. The amount that you put in is going to make a difference in terms of how much death benefit you get and how much cash accumulation you get. So in order to kind of find, a way to illustrate this, it's really going to boil down to what's most important to you, like the death benefit or the cash accumulation. Which of those two would you think is going to be the most important for you?
It's kind of 50-50. I kind of like both are important to me. Is that doable?
100%, 100%. We could definitely do that. So what we'll do is, so you're 34,
35.
35. Okay, perfect. So let me see here. So when I do this, a lot of times for people who don't, and just as a side note, I'm just going to interject here. This is what I've noticed with a lot of people. With the Index Universal Life, again, the only way to really illustrate it is you either have to know the face amount they want or the amount of money that they want to put in per month. Now, there's a lot of times where I might say something like, how much insurance do you think that you're looking to, if I can get you approved for this, how much how much insurance were you hoping to get approved for? And they might say, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just trying to get more information. Perfect. Okay, no problem. All right, perfect. So the other thing I would ask you is, again, you could put in as much or as little as you want into something like this. Is there kind of like a number as far as a monthly amount that you feel like would be a good starting point for you? I mean, this is really just, this is really just to show you the trajectory of how the cash value would grow over time. But I mean, did you have like a starting point as far as a monthly amount that you feel like would be good for you?
I
And
was
you
thinking,
go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I was thinking that maybe like $100 per paycheck, and I get paid every Friday. So I was thinking, like $100 a week, maybe
200.
$400 a month.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, so about 200 bucks a month then.
I was thinking 400. I get paid
400.
every Friday. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So 400. Yeah, every Friday. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we'll just stick with 400. The one thing I will tell you about these policies as well is, so a lot of people like the fact that, with these policies, the ability to overfund the policy as far as how much room or how much of a cap that you have on this policy is always going to correspond to how much death benefit you have. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, let's say you have, and these are just examples for preliminary purposes. Don't get too hung up on like the literal uh, yeah, don't get too hung up on like the literal aspects of these numbers. I'm just using this for illustrative purposes. So for example, let's say, Josh, I started you off with $100,000 death benefit. It might give you up to $5,000 a year. It might, if I gave you 200,000, I might give you $10,000 a year. If I gave you 300,000, I might give you 15,000. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I want to be real clear as to why the IRS allows you the ability to overfund this policy. And the reason being is they allow you to do it on a tax-free basis because technically it's a life insurance policy. So and along those same lines, like I said, if you had a $300,000 policy, you're going to have up to $15,000 a year you can put into it. Reason why I'm telling you this is because, sometimes I get people who come to me and say, hey, I really just want like a $10,000 policy, but I want to put in like $50,000 a year. And well, if someone wants to do this, I mean, essentially the IRS would look back at me and say, well, that's good for them. But, because that's such a higher amount of cash going into the cash accumulation account in contrast to the amount of insurance, that's going to technically be fall into what they call a MEC, and then it ceases to be an insurance product. It starts to fall underneath the same lines as like a purely investment product. And really, based on what I'm gathering from you, the whole reason why you would do this is because you're trying to utilize that tax advantage way to grow your money. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Perfect. So what I'll do is why don't I do this? I'll just start you off kind of just showing you like a basic plan. What I mean by that is I'll show you like $200,000 worth of death benefit. And then I'll kind of touch on what that annual limit would be. I can even illustrate what that looks like if you were max funding it on an annual basis, just to show you what that cash accumulation would look like. But then on a monthly basis, I do this with mine. On a monthly basis, I have an index universal life and I just pay like just the minimum premium, which is like $279 a month. But on an annual basis, I have up to 20,000 I can put into it. And I prefer to do it that way because it gives me it's easier for me to kind of like see what my financial picture looks like on an annual basis rather than on having like this massive payment going to an index universal life. But you could do either way. Like I said, for you said $400 a month. We could even do that, but I'm just making the point that you're going to probably have even a substantial amount more room, even more than that 400 if you wanted to really grow it. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. So hold on one second. So I'm going to look to see what this cap is on there, and then I can even illustrate as if you were max funding it on a yearly basis, just to show you what this would look like. So this cap on this product, I'm about to share my screen here in a second. I just wanted to look at this. So this cap on this product, Josh, on like a what do you call it? A $200,000 policy. It's roughly about $8,000 a year. So, I mean, again, I know that you're just, for you, you're just starting off putting in like 400. But what I could do is a lot of people will do something like that. And that day, at the end of the year, that would be like 4,800 bucks. you could drop in an additional 32 and you would be max funding it, and that would cause it to grow as big as possible. I know you wouldn't start off doing that, but would you want me to show you what that trajectory would look like just so you kind of get an idea of how much it would grow?
Yeah, sometimes I get a bonus or a tax refund, so maybe I'll put my tax refund in there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's what I do too. I do something like that. So let's see here. So what I'm going to do here, actually, I'm going to share my screen. That way you guys can see me doing this. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen here. So what I'm doing with Josh, this is WinFlex. You know, obviously the little basics of how to log in and everything. You guys can get more information about that from your upline, Aaron, Nelson, whoever it is. So what you want to do is, you know, anytime you're uh, illustrating and you're wanting to show what it looks like, if it's max funded, what you want to do is what I always do is preemptively while I'm talking to the client. There's probably an easier way to do this, but I've just gotten so used to doing it like this. But like I said, I'll start off with like a basic plan because I don't want to like overwhelm them with, you know, maybe 300,000 might be just out of their price range. So I'll start off like in the median as far as 200,000, and I'll just generate just a basic policy. And I always add that accidental death rider on there, just simply because that little bit of extra of insurance does increase the GL annual that you can put into the policy as well. The one thing to know about the accidental death rider is it only lasts till about 65. So contrast that with a standalone accidental. It's eight. That the standalone accidental lasts till 80. But I just put it on there because it increases the GL, the amount of money that you can put in there in order to grow it. So what you want to do is I just generated this really quick just so that I can look to see anytime you're generating one of these illustrations, once you get to this policy ledgers plays, or it's called policy ledgers on F&G, on this is called the numeric summary. You're going to get to the end, and right at the last page, it's going to show you this guideline maximum level. That's that $8,000 a month. So we know that that's the amount that he could put in there per year. So for example, so if I know that's what he can put in there per year, 8,000 divided by 12, that's a number that it's actually 666. So anyways, so I'll just put this in there. I usually go a little bit lower than that just to kind of like, so once I know what $8,000 a year is, once I divide it by 12, I just go here and then I do no solve and I put 200,000 and then I just do what would that be? I'll just do like 650. I think maybe even 640. I think 650 might even be a little bit too close. So then I just do all the same basics. Josh is 35, male, Virginia. I know he's in South Carolina, but it doesn't really matter. And you want to solve for no solve, because what no solve does is no solve gives you the ability that you can put this 200,000 in there, and then you can enter in any premium you want as far as how much they want to put into this on a monthly basis. So once I generate this is going to show 640 times 12 as far as the annual outlay, as far as how much they're putting in there per year. So 640.
Eli, just so you know, that $8,000 per year was based on a 30-year-old.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So it's probably going to be more now. Yep, you're right. So it's going to be more. It's probably going to be like, probably like 86. Let me see what that will look like.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
On the 8,000, when you get in the GL, do you subtract their annual premium currently from that to determine how much, or is it actually 8,000 additional that they can put in?
It's just 8,000 total. So for example, like if I don't know if you saw when I generated target, it was showing 124. 124 times 12 is going to be 1488. So that 8,000 is going to be 8,000 minus that amount. So it's the total amount, right?
So
It's counting the cost of insurance and the max funding. Say that again.
So about 6,000 something,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly. But I just show it as if they're putting it all in there, for the year. So yeah, to your point, Josh, if you do, yeah, it's like 9,000. So what I'll do is I'll just do 9,000, divide that by 12. because a lot of people like using these as their own bank, to use it as their own bank. They don't have to. What I always try to tell people is, you know, even if they're not doing 9,000 a year, as long as they're putting in like 5, 6, it's going to be good, right? But you don't want to like do something like this and then once you show them what the target premium is, don't emphasize the fact that they never have to put any more in there, because if it's an increasing death benefit, which is this is the way I've illustrated this. Here's the other thing. I kind of jumped ahead here. The way I'm illustrating this is I'm doing no solve, and when anytime you're doing an increasing death benefit versus a level one, when you do level, I can actually show you this, but for the sake of time, I'll just stick with increasing. But when you do increasing, it actually increases that guideline maximum premium so that they have the ability to overfund it even more. If this is level, it's probably going to be like 4,000 rather than like 9,000, right? So I always do increasing if they're really wanting to utilize this for the sake of max funding it. Yeah, so we got 9,000. So I'm just going to do $700 a month. That's going to be, what's that going to be? 700. That's like 80 times. Yeah, 8,400 bucks. That's close enough. I'm trying not to get too close to it because it starts getting kind of, mutual of alcohol gets kind of glitchy. This little orange little triangle shows up. But this is going to give me the ability to kind of show Josh, as if he's a client, what it would look like if he wanted to use this to really grow his cash value, right? So, for example, like you were saying, Mark, if his monthly premium, which I already know what it is, because I'll get to that here in a second, not to confuse you guys, but I already know that the target premium on this is 124 a month. So that's what he's going to have to pay in order to just keep this policy going. He doesn't have to pay $700 a month. He does have all that ability to overfund it to grow it, but he has to pay 124 a month, right? So this is going to show that 124 plus that additional amount he's putting in there to max fund it for the purpose of cash accumulation. Now, once I get down here, I'll usually say something like this. I'll say, now, Josh, this is what you're looking at here. Actually, first, before I do anything, I usually just touch everything up here, just to kind of touch on the insurance side of the policy first. So Josh, this is what I found. Based on everything you're trying to do, it looks like the best policy, the best product for you is going to be with this company called Mutual of Omaha. You ever heard of them?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Real good company, man. Been around since 1906. I typically only work with A+ rated companies simply because, what that means is they've never had any instances of insolvency. And, obviously there's other companies out there like your little mom and pop shop insurance companies, and they're not bad companies, but when you're dealing with something like this, I just like to, I'd rather, if I'm going to recommend anything, I'd rather work with a company that I know that they have an established track record where they've never had any of that stuff, instances of insolvency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Perfect. So real quick, I'm going to just touch on the insurance attributes of this policy, as you can see right here. So what you're looking at here, so this is starting you off at a $200,000 policy. And what you're going to see is as this cash value grows over time, it's actually going to make this death benefit increase as well. So as the cash accumulation grows, it gets added to the death benefit, therefore making the death benefit grow as well, right? And I'll show you all of that here in a second. Just want to at least give you a heads up so you know what you're looking at when we get down to it. Just don't worry about this. I put this in here, $700 a month, as if you were putting in $8,400 a year, because you had expressed that you're interested in and max funding this in order to grow your cash accumulation. This is going to give you a good idea as to what that looks like should you overfund it significantly in the future, right? But then once I show you this, I can even just show you what the target premium would be, which means it's like the minimum premium you have to pay in order to just make sure that this policy continues on, right? But keep in mind, the only way that this is beneficial to do this is it's only beneficial to structure it like this is if you are pretty intentional about overfunding it a little bit more than that 124. Well, I wouldn't even mention the 124 at this point, but I would say the only way it would be beneficial is if you intend on overfunding it more in the future, because that way it's going to accumulate enough cash value to make sure that it lasts the test of time. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay, perfect. So I'll get to that here in a second, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. So it does come with an accidental death benefit rider. What that means is, God forbid, something happens to you in an accident, car crash, plane crash, fire, drowning, get stabbed, get shot, fall down, hit your head, anything accident related. You're 35 years old. If something like that, if anything were to happen to you, at least in the next 10, 15 years, the majority of the time, from a statistical standpoint, most likely going to be an accident. So it's a nice little layer of protection to have, knowing that you're going to have this in addition to that. You're going to have an additional 200,000. If something happens to you in an accident, God forbid, knock on wood, it would double that face amount to 200,000. So it's kind of covering you on the front end, but then in the meantime, as this is increasing over time, as this death benefit's increasing over time, it's covering you on the front end, but then on the back end, it's going to be significantly larger anyways, because it would have built up over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. So that's that. It also comes with an what do you call it? Living benefits. Comes with living benefits. Living benefits are a type of rider to where if you were to come down with a critical, chronic, or terminal illness, you'd be able to get, up to 80% of whatever your death benefit is at the time, to help pay for those things. So what that looks like is, critical illness is going to be any type of disease or illness that's considered life-threatening, even if you don't pass away from heart attack, stroke, cancer, anything like that. Terminal, that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty much any disease or illness where the doctor comes in and says, hey, I'm sorry to tell you, but you got like 12 months or less to live. And then a chronic illness is going to be any type of disease or illness that inhibits the daily living activity. So that could be like, those activities would include eating, dressing, bathing, toileting, taking medications, things like early onset of Parkinson's, dementia, Lou Gehrig's disease, anything like that. So on that one, it would give you 80%, but it would give you 80% split up over the course of 4 years. But again, if in 10 years from now, your death benefit grew to 350, so it would give you the ability to get 80% of 350 rather than 200, but it would just be split up over the course of 4 years. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect. So I'm trying to speed this up because I know we're running out of time here. So let's see. So once I get down here, I usually say something like this. I'll say, now, Josh, real quick, one thing I want to touch on real quick is, because I know as soon as you saw this, you're probably like, what is all this stuff? So it shows 3 columns here. Reason being is, with insurance companies, just like most financial institutions, they want to be very transparent. And in this instance, they're showing you these values as if to under promise and over deliver. So what I mean by that is, this guaranteed column corresponds to this number right here, this 0%. This alternate scale corresponds to this 3.75. And then this far right column corresponds to this right here, this 5.92. Now, the reason why I mention that is because, like I said, this company, they want to under promise and over deliver. But just to kind of give you an idea of how this policy has performed in the last 20 years, I'll just touch on this table up here just to kind of give you an idea. I think the last time I did the math on this, this is showing what this policy, as far as the crediting, has done in the last 20 years. So as you can see, 2006, it did 13.62%. That's what the market did, the S&P 500. You cap out at 9.25. And in the year 2008, the market actually lost 38.49%. You didn't gain anything that year, but you also didn't lose anything either. So the way you kind of want to look at it is, each year as you get credited, whatever you got credited up until that point, it's pretty much locked in. So you're not going to lose it. Like if you see a significant downturn on the market the very next year, you're not going to lose anything that year, but you're not going to gain anything either. Reason why that I always try to mention that, obviously I talk about 401ks and IRAs and stuff like that. They're not bad things to have, but the difference between something like this and compared to those things is an IRA or a 401k, all of your principal is in the market all of the time. So it's a roller coaster ride all over the place. So that means there's potential for huge upside, but also potential for huge gains. So if you had a 401k and you had $1 million in 2008 and it did this, I mean, you pretty much would have lost $400,000 overnight, right? So, if anything, it's a good way to kind of diversify so you're not just all, putting all your eggs in one basket. Make sense, Josh?
Yeah, it does.
Perfect. So the reason why I'm showing you that table is because, I'll just say it for the sake of time. I show them that table and I pretty much just say, hey, when you look at this, if you look at all the different years, it's maxed out at 9.25. You do the math on that, it's right around 8%. It's pretty much averaged about 8% over the last 20 years. Now, contrast that with what it's showing here. Even this is pretty conservative, right? So all that being said, we'll just stick with this in order to give you a very, very, very realistic expectation as to what this is going to do over time. But if it does 8%, a good 2% a year for the next 20 years, that's going to make a substantial difference, right? So, but we'll just stick with this just to kind of give you an idea, so you have a reasonable expectation. Make sense, Josh?
Yeah, it does.
Perfect. So what I got on this illustration is I'm showing as if you're putting in here $8,400 a year. I know you expressed you were going to put in about $400 a month. So that would give you an extra, what would that be? An extra $3,400 a year that you could put in there. Was that 34? No, 3,600 a year you could put in there. And basically that 3,600, if you put that extra 3,600 a year, it's going to grow the exact same way. So what you're looking at here is, as you can see, each year, as you put that money in there, this accumulation value is growing and it's getting added to the death benefit. So 207, 215, 223, 231, 241. Now, this is kind of tricky because the accumulation value is actually different from the surrender value. Technically, this is the money that's available in the form of a loan, but when the money that's getting credited to the death benefit is based on this. So right around the 5-6 year mark, that's when it really starts to kind of even out. As you can see right here in year 6, your accumulation value is around 50,000 and your surrender values just shy of 3,000, less than that. And then the longer that goes on, they're eventually going to meet up. But technically, this is the amount that's available in the form of a loan. So let's just say, for example, in your case, you contribute this for 10 years. What's going to happen is at that point, your accumulation value is going to be 108, but the amount that you have in the form of a loan available to you is going to be 107. So let's say at this point you said, oh, you know what? I want to take out a loan against this policy for an asset, to put in a real estate asset. So let's say you took out 100,000 against this, right? Now what's going to happen, this is what's great about it. This is what this whole infinite banking principle is all about. So if you took out 100,000 against this policy, what's going to happen is, even though you took out 100,000, it's still going to show as if it has this 108 in there, and then it's going to grow compound interest on this figure, even though you have that money somewhere else, using it somewhere else. So what that looks like is you took out 100,000 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, your total surrender value is going to be 204. That means you have another $100,000 in there again, even though you only put in what you put in 8,000 times 6, that's roughly 48, maybe it's $50,000 total. So you put in about $50,000, but in 6 years from now, you're going to have an additional 100,000. So again, it's allowing that money to grow exponentially faster than if you just had it in a bank, right? So that's what some people will do. They'll take out 100,000 here, 100,000 here, 1, 2, 3, let's see, 4 or 5 years later, another 100,000. Let's say you get to this age, 61, and by this point, you took out 4 loans totaling in $100,000 each. Now, you could either pay the loans back. If you do pay the loans back, it's just going to further increase your borrowing power for later on down the road. But even if you don't pay the loans back, what's going to happen is you're going to have $400,000 worth of outstanding loans that's counting against this. And if God forbid something happens to you, they'll just subtract it off this. And that's how they reconcile all the accounts. So your family would still get $225,000 worth of death benefit, right? So that's how they reconcile the accounts in case something like that happens, right? Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah, it does.
Perfect. And then the last thing, the other thing is, that's one way people will use this. Another way people will use this, let's say you just wanted to use this as a way to grow a massive amount of, legacy money for the future. So I'm not saying you would do something like this, but let's say you paid into this $8,400 a year till age 80. Beginning at age 81, you're going to have $1.5 million worth of accumulation just on the cash accumulation side. On the death benefit side, you're gonna have 1.7, close to 1.8, right? So you did all the math on that just to kind of put this in perspective. You put in about 336 plus this additional, what's that, 48,000. That's roughly 390. So you would have put in about 390 in their total. And then just on the death benefit side, you're gonna have 1.7 million. So you put in 390. That's 4 or 5. That's at least a 4.5 multiple of how much money you put in there, even if it only ever does 5.92%, right? So, I mean, that's another way people use it. Like I said, I'm not saying you would do it like that, but you could do it like that if you wanted to grow a massive death benefit for your family and your family trust. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yep.
And then the last thing is real quick. Last thing I'll do is I'll just kind of touch on what this looks like if you wanted to use this for like a retirement stream. Now, for you guys listening, this is where it gets a little tricky. On the retirement stream, what you want to do is it's the same illustration and everything, but you basically want to show as if they're paying from age 35. Let's say we want to have them stop paying into this at age 67. And then starting at 68 all the way till 90, and then this is going to be zeros on both of these. So basically only paying $700 a month till age 67 or $8,400 a year till age 67, right? And then so you do that, you're basically, this column is basically asking you how much they're going to be paying a year, or in this case, a month, which equals a year, right? For how long until what age? So just till age 67. Then on this tab, this is going to show you what the disbursements are going to look like. So on the disbursements, same thing, 67. So it's age 67, and then from 68 to 90, it's going to you want to do solve for max level disbursement. That'll show those annual loans that they could take out for the purpose of retirement. So that's the other thing you want to do is to just make sure that it's illustrating to show those disbursements. And then the last thing is you're going to make sure that this is showing increasing, but then at a certain age, you want it to show levels so that it drives down the cost of insurance once they start taking out the loans. So you do 67 again, 68 till max. Yeah, from age 68 to max, meaning the max age forever level death benefit, right? Okay, so then when you illustrate this, what I like about this is this actually does a really, really good job of showing infinite banking, because what will happen is even once they start taking those annual distributions, your accumulation account is still growing. The way that affects, and I'll explain this to Josh as if he's a client, but I'm just telling you guys for the sake of you knowing, the way that fleshes out is because that death benefit or that accumulation account is still growing over time, even though he's still even once he starts taking out loans, it allows the money to stretch out longer, which actually makes the money the payout bigger over time. So you'll see this on here. It's pretty clear. Let's see here. Make this a little smaller. Okay, so Josh, this is what you're looking at, Josh. The last thing that I'll show you, like I said, I don't know if you would use it for this reason, but a lot of people like it because it is tax-free, and again, because of the way it safeguards your money from market volatility, you could use this as a way to supplement your retirement as well. So let's say, for example, Josh, you put in $8,400 till age 68. Next year, beginning at age till age 68. Well, just to kind of give you an idea of what, and I always do this with people because I want them to see how the infinite banking, meaning the taking out the loans and stretching it out longer, is more beneficial. So I'll say something like this. Yeah, so let's say you pay into this, Josh, till age 68. By the time you get to that age, your cash accumulation account is going to have about $693,000, right? So $693,000, if you wanted to take that out as a lump sum, you could. But essentially what that would look like is If you had $693,000, you divided that by 22 as if as if you were using that to pay yourself an annual salary for the next 22 years, that would roughly equate to about $31,500, right? Pretty good. It's tax free, so you're not going to get taxed on it. And obviously, especially if you're just using it to supplement something, it's not bad, right? But if you take this out in the form of annual loans, as you can see, I'm sure you probably already saw this sitting here, it's going to give you 51,000. Now, that's a good $20,000 a year. That's almost a 20%, that's almost a 30% increase, right? Reason being is, and this is perfect because this shows exactly what this infinite banking principle looks like. Once you get to this age, you see how this accumulation value is building up all this time. Then even once you start taking out these loans, it's still growing. 731, 769, 808, 846. And so the reason why, and the reason why that matters is because it's still growing. That's why it's giving you more on an annual basis, because it's stretching out the money further rather than you just taking this out in the form of a lump sum and then only having $31,000 a year for the next 22 years, 22 years. Now, one thing to keep in mind, as you can see, this death benefit is increasing the whole time. And then as soon as you start taking out these annual loans, it starts going down. 804, 789, 772, 745, 716, right? Because what they're showing is, I mean, of course, at this age, if you start taking out an annual loan, they're fully anticipating you're not going to pay any of these loans back. And let's face it, at this age, you probably shouldn't. I mean, if you're using this for retirement, who's going to pay back 51,000 bucks for the next 22 years? It's not going to happen. That's the whole reason why you have this, right? But if you're going to do it like that, it's basically just going to make this death benefit decrease over time. So as you can see, after about 22 years, at the end of that, your death benefit is going to be, you're going to be left over with $97,000 at the end of that, right? So, I mean, again, obviously it drained your death benefit pretty substantially, but if that's what you want to use it for, that's obviously what it's going to do. So just to put this all in perspective, I always do this with people because I want them to see the growth on this. Just to put this all in perspective, Josh, $51,159 times 22 years is $1.1 million, right? Meaning the total of all these annual distributions from the time you started taking it out to the end. It's $1.125 million. So you would have put in about 277,000 and you would have got out about 1.125. And again, this is all if it just does 5.92. If it does a little bit more, it might be a little bit more. But we'll just, like I said, for the sake of being conservative and realistic, this is a pretty realistic estimate as to what this might do. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So then at that point, I say something like, so Josh, I mean, based off everything that I'm showing you, is this kind of like what you were looking for, or what are your thoughts on this overall?
Yeah, this seems like it covers everything I was wanting and more. So yeah, I mean, this looks amazing.
Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is, I mean, if I can get you again, this is what I'll tell you with these products, it's a little harder to get approved for it because it's just a little strict on the underwriting. But if I can get you approved for this, do you feel like this could potentially be the answer for you, or you still there?
Oh, sorry, I had it muted. Yeah, definitely. Definitely sounds like the answer.
Okay, perfect. So why don't we do this? This approval process, it doesn't take too long, about 10, 15 minutes. So we'll put this submission in for approval just to make sure we can get it for you. One thing I will tell you is, great thing about this product, as long as you can get approved for it, it does offer the ability to give you day one coverage. So if you got approved immediately, is that something you would want to take advantage of?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And then sometimes if someone goes, if someone starts waffling a little bit, like, I don't know, I don't have the money today, I'll mention that you can push off the payment, but I try to like get them to pay as soon as possible because you guys know how that goes if you like push it out, right? So again, I'll try to frame that in a very, very good light, as if to say, hey, you could this, if as long as you get approved, you can get this does give you the ability to have day one coverage. And I frame it in a positive light as if it's a positive thing rather than like, making it sound like, oh man, you got to shell out $400 right now, right? So anyways, that's basically what I do with the Index Universal Life, and then I rate the application. So we probably don't have too much more time. Is that correct, Aaron?
Nah, bro. We went till 1 a.m. last time with Josh. So if you're cool, no, I'm just playing. We're not going to go that late.
Are you serious? You went to 1 a.m.?
No, we're just playing.
I was like, dang, that's great.
Really, Eli? Like, this was above and beyond, and we've got this thing for watch. I'm pretty certain that you just skilled the entire agency up, and hopefully some of the Sarge agency was on to skill your team up as well. So
100%, 100%. Well, cool, man. I'm glad to hear that. Honestly, if you ever, obviously I know you guys have a schedule at this point. If we ever needed to do like an F&G one, I could do that one as well. It's hard to like get everything, but while you're in a rush.
Sure. We're on schedule. Mark, you get the one and only question. What you got, dog?
What's up, buddy?
All right, sweet. When the client takes a loan, so let's say that their accumulation, their surrender value equal at $1 million, right? And they want to take $500,000 in a loan. Does their death benefit drop immediately when they take the loan?
Yeah, pretty much. It's basically like it's counting against that. So basically, like, I don't know what the actual ledger would show, but it hardly matters whether or not the ledger shows that the death benefit had dropped or not, because if they did die, then that's how they would reconcile the accounts. So to your point, if I'm understanding you right, if they had $1 million in there and they took a $500,000 loan, like let's say their death benefit grew to like $1 million and they took out a $500,000 loan and they passed away, it would just subtract that and then there would be 500,000 left.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool, man. Well, I think that's it, man. So yeah, I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Again, I know it's a little harder to articulate all this stuff when you have a short amount of time, but hopefully you guys got something out of this, and we'll keep talking about this so that we can get everybody skilled up. So
you're the man, Eli. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, bro. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eli.
Thank you, Elijah.
Absolutely. Enjoy your night.